Hello Precure loving individuals. In this video I want to give my thoughts and opinions on Otona Precure, or as Crunchyroll oddly calls it, Power of Hope Precure Full Bloom. As a fan of Yes Precure 5 Go-Go, this series has definitely exceeded my expectations, so let me tell you my thoughts. This spin-off has quickly become one of my favorite Precure series ever, just because it's so different and so fresh. Something interesting is that before Otona Precure was revealed, the opening theme song, Power of Hope, was also used in a Precure 20th anniversary promotional video with real-life people, and once I heard that it was the opening for this show, I was like, oh, cool. But this series has made me cry multiple times. Even just watching the opening when I first saw episode 1, it's really cool to see all the Cures as grown-ups now, and I think I was getting emotional when I saw the Cures using their attacks. They have this beautiful colored backgrounds with these Roman numerals flying all about. It's very aesthetic and very pretty. So starting with episode 1, I thought it was just amazing to see Nozomi in her current life. She is a teacher, and so she's trying to help this girl the best that she can, but she kind of learns that you can only do so much, and her words of kindness and motivation were enough, and that's all she could do. And at the end of the episode, we finally see the other girls, but it leaves us with a cliffhanger, and there's no action in the first episode, which is completely fine. I think there doesn't need to be fighting in this first episode. The second episode, though, this was the best episode, okay? So we see Syrup in the Cure Rose Garden, and he's humming Extraordinary Door of Courage, which is a Cure Lemonade image song. He sees the flowers, which turn out to be time flowers, which are the plot device that allow the girls to become Precures again. Evil entity in the clock tower named Belle, who for me, she resembles the boss, the final villain from Yes Precure 5, because of the giant wings and the feathers and all that. And her hair color reminds you of Hadenya in civilian form from the original Yes Precure 5. So she's very bitter, and she turns the people's shadows into monsters. And this is what prompts Nozomi to awaken into Cure Dream again. And this was a point of controversy because when transforming, there's two controversies in here. The first one is that when transforming Cure Dream, she becomes a teenager again. So this bothered me because I wanted to see Cure Dream as an adult. I think it would have been cool to see Precures fighting as adults to not reinforce the idea that if you want to be a magical person, you have to be a kid, and once you grow up, it's no longer there. It's weird to me, and it's very similar to the whole Digimon Last Adventure Kizuna movie, where I guess once they're adults now, they don't need Digimon anymore, some stupid shit like that. But yeah, I mean, now I'm fine with it. I'm kind of used to it, and I hope later in the finale they become adult Cures. That would have been epic and iconic. I do think the de-aging thing was simply just done so that they can reuse stock footage, and also for nostalgia factor, so you can actually see the Cures, fighting as they used to. But I have seen some silly arguments that say that if they were to become adult Cures, it would defeat the purpose of the show, and also it'll go against the marketing, which doesn't make sense because Cure Earth and Cure Butterfly are adult Cures. So, but yeah, I'm fine with them de-aging, kind of used to it. The second point of controversy was the fact that they reused stock footage for Cure Dream's transformation and attack. I am one of the people who do not mind this at all. I think it was completely fine, and I really don't care that they use it. Even 2008, I think some people say it aged badly. I still think it looks fine that they're reusing it. It's not like it's 240p and it's blurry. It looks clear still. And I mean, at least when I watch it, some people say they can see the difference. I'm like, that's fine. I don't really think it looks that crazy. So this fight with Cure Dream versus the Shadows had me in tears. I was actually crying for this fight because number one, it was incredibly well animated. It was very, very dynamic. The way Cure Dream punches the monsters with such force. You really do feel her power through the fight and her determination. Number two, the reason why I found it emotional was because they played my number one favorite Precure battle music of all time, which is Yes Precure 5 OST Volume 1, Track 35, The Girl's Power Take This. I think it's a flute in the song, but the melody is just so catchy and beautiful and just powerful. Just perfect for a battle. And unfortunately, it did not play in Yes Precure 5 Go-Go. It only played in the first Yes Precure 5. So to hear it again was just awesome. I think it actually played in a few Precure All-Stars movies, but I'm not sure. I also wanted to mention that in this episode, we see bits and pieces of the other Yes 5 girls' lives. Urara is an actress, and she's dealing with a really condescending writing director or some kind of audition person who's rude to her, and she feels hurt by the director's words. Relatable, because I was in a stage play for Hairspray in 2017, and first of all, I hated it. The directors were rude as fuck. Rin is doing a jewelry business. Speaking of which, it's really cool that they have NPCs in the background who are dark skin. Okay, Precure leveling up. We didn't really see any of that melanin in Tropical Rouge, which is ironic because it's a tropical season. But it seems like they're really improving, and hopefully we can get more dark skin cures in the future. Kurumi, aka Milk, is a businesswoman, or I guess she's like working, not a businesswoman, but she's like working in an office, and her job is miserable. Like her boss is like so rude, and he's making her like stay overtime. She's like, I'm done for the day. But he was saying, oh, you should stay here and do more work. And she was like, And then we see Karen, and she's a doctor, and she's helping patients. But now we're gonna talk about the star of the episode, at least for me. Out of like, all the girls who had their little moments of their job struggles, it seems that Komachi had the most screen time for some strange reason. I mean, hey, I'm not complaining, but I was fully expecting them to have, Urara and Rin have more screen time, and then she just had like a 30-second clip. But oddly, hers was not only the first one that they showed, but like she had a long ass portion. And so basically, she's working in the garden of the community. I think it's like a community garden. She's basically helping the neighborhood. We learned that she had wrote a successful novel and she won an award for that. But now she's just living a chill life, helping her family restaurant, which sells the Mame Daifuku, and also just helping the community. But she feels unsatisfied with her life. She's comparing herself to her friends, saying, oh, they're all doing these things, actress, jewelry business, and Nozomi's a teacher. And she just feels unsatisfied. And she's also having a writer's block. She can't think of anything to write. But then we see big sis Madoka, Komachi's sister, who looked exactly like her in the original series, and that kind of pissed me off. But here we see her with a new hairstyle, and she has her kimono on. She looks so beautiful and unique now. She was like, I'm done being an Echo Fighter. I want my own moveset. So she was basically just giving Komachi advice, saying life isn't smooth sailing after you accomplish one big thing. There will always be a struggle after struggle, but you just keep on winning and keep on being successful. Like her, she had a novel. She has to be proud of that and not devalue herself. So episode 3 was a Karen focused episode, and we see her life as a doctor now. We see the old footage of Karen awakening, or like rather her struggle of awakening into a Precure back in Yes Precure 5, the old 2007 footage. And when I saw that footage, I just was crying because it was like, wow, so long ago, and she's helping a younger generation. But let's talk about the fight of this episode. For me, I thought this fight was absolutely awful. I hated it so much. So Karen awakens with the time flower. She becomes a teenager again, and she transforms into Cure Aqua. She's fighting these monsters, and it's cool that we see added special effects within this spin-off. Like when she punches the monster, there's these blue sparkles, and I don't think we really saw something like that in the old season. Cure Dream also had the pink sparkles. It's really cool to see them adding extra special effects. I also want to add that it's really cool that the characters still seem really on model, despite the art director being different in this series. But the part that I hate about this fight is, despite being newly awakened, Cure Aqua can't handle these monsters for some reason, so we have to have Kurumi randomly jump in and awaken and help her fight. Interestingly though, it seems that Kurumi doesn't need a time flower. She just kind of reverts back into a teen, and some people are like, oh, if she had that ability, then why isn't she an adult in Cure form? The obvious answer is just because of stock footage and to keep things consistent. But so the girls team up and they do a joint attack of Precure Sapphire Arrow and Milky Rose Metal Blizzard to defeat the monsters. And that fight was just not it, because Cure Aqua could have handled those monsters herself. She didn't need Milk jumping in. She didn't need Milky Rose jumping in. The next episode hit me with a curveball because I was expecting them to continue the main Yes 5 girls independent storylines, but they surprised me with a Splash Star focused episode, specifically Mai, aka Cure Egret. In my opinion, episode 4 and episode 5 really messed up the flow of the episodes, because I had assumed that after episode 3, which is Cure Aqua's awakening, they were going to continue the trend of the rest of the Yes 5 girls awaken in the same order that the ending shows them in. Because if you didn't know, the ending actually hints toward the awakening order. So it's just this weird gap with Cure Aqua, 2 other episodes, and then continuing the Yes 5 girls, when they should have just put these episodes afterwards. Also, it isn't really explained how Yes Precure 5 and Splash Star just know each other and know that they're Precure. I guess it's implied that the All-Stars movies are canon, but I personally already viewed them as canon anyways, especially because in recent seasons, like in Delicious Party, they just have the Cures there. And in the Hugcho episode, there was the big All-Stars episode, 2 of them actually. And we see Mai, and she's working as a graphic designer, making logos and stuff. But her whole plot line is that her boyfriend is breaking up with her, and she feels so unbothered. She feels like indifferent to it, and also Saki's engaged, and I'll get to that. She helps Saki do this bakery business for the day. Mai kind of rants about how she's, not feeling the relationship. She doesn't care that she's, breaking up with this dude, because she says she wants to just focus on her own life and she doesn't want to feel tied down to societal expectations. For me, this plot just felt so weak. Tell me what you guys think of it in the comments. This moment with Mai feeling indifferent to her boyfriend, I was fully expecting, I was on the edge of my seat, fully expecting her to come out and say that I'm a lesbian. I was fully expecting that to happen, and that would have been a very bold decision for the writers to have done because, for those of you who watch Splash Star, Saki and Mai had a very, very close bond. For me, I was not feeling the scene at all. Unfortunately for them, Belle's shadow monsters appear out of nowhere and start chasing the girls. Don't hurt us, but then they get saved by Robu. Syrup arrives. This really gave me chills and a little emotional because we saw him in his cute fluffy transportation form the first time in a long time. Blast from the past. And it's not like I actually watched Yes Bigger 5 Go-Go in like 2008, but because I watched it like when I was in college like 5 years ago, but yeah, I mean still. We also see the return of Bunbi in this episode, who was a villain in Yes Bigger 5, and he also appeared in Yes Bigger 5 Go-Go. Originally in Yes Bigger 5, we were made to believe he was the boss of Nightmare, or the leader, but then we find out that he's just working under Kawarino, and he becomes this slapstick character who ends up good at the end, not by purification from the Cure's magic, but just by his own means. He just ends up being sweet and helping them. He also cameoed in the Hugto All-Stars episodes and the Healing Good movie, so I guess the writers really love him. In this episode, we also see his battle form, which is this insect humanoid. Speaking of which, there's no context as to why he and the rest of the members of Nightmare, and I guess Eternal for that matter, have these monstrous forms. They kind of just exist, and there's no backstory as to why they are that way. Unfortunately, that seems to be the case for a lot of Precure villains, no backstory whatsoever, but... And now we're on to episode 5, which had many people heated, and naturally so, because we have, again, Coco the Groomer. The grooming was especially emphasized here because we start with Nozomi talking to her students and what they want to be when they grow up, and some people are like, oh, I want to be a fireman, and one girl's like, I want to be a mangaka, and they were like, how did you want to become a teacher, Nozomi-sensei? And she's like, well, it all started when I met this one teacher who changed my life. And it's like, ugh, ew. The Coco stuff aside, the only thing I really liked about this episode was that Komachi, again, was randomly given a lot of screen time. I love that. We see Komachi having lunch with Kurumi, which is pretty cool because these two girls never really interacted much, like directly in the original show. It was really cool to see them bond. We see Kurumi showing Komachi YouTube video of Dark Night Light, which is Kaoru and Michiru from Splash Star's YouTube channel, but their faces are obscured with icons. I hope we can see their actual faces later in the show. We also see Komachi doing more community work, and she has been giving recycling lessons to her community. I'm like, wow. But anyway, Nuts arrives, and Komachi and Milk are excited, and then Nozomi arrives to meet them at the diner, the restaurant, and then they're like, hey Nozomi, look who we have, and Nozomi's just kind of like, okay, like that's great, but where's Coco? So she just does not care about Nuts, but of course Belle's monsters attack the town, and so Nuts and the two girls go in one direction, and Nozomi goes in the random corner until she's attacked by Belle. I don't feel this couple at all. Pure Dream transforms, and she defeats the monster. It was kind of an underwhelming fight because I'm just here waiting for the other Yes Bigger 5 girls. We already saw Pure Dream fighting, so let's get it moving now. Something about Komachi in the scene, she just gave Hotaru Tomoe. I don't know, just the way she was like running around with her bob. Kurumi becomes Milky Rose and fights off the monsters. And I also want to add that Kurumi is getting a lot of screen time in this series, and at first I was annoyed by it, but then I realized that it's fine because each of the S5 girls is going to get their own independent focused episode, and I don't think Milky Rose will get her own. So they're basically like sprinkling in bits and pieces of her because she doesn't have her own focus episode. So it's a nice balance actually. Unless they do give her one later, but it's better to not have Curemint awaken in this scene because it would have been very short-lived. Even though she got a good decent amount, Curemint was not the focus. So if she just awakened randomly, it would just be shit. You could also make the same argument for Cure Bloom in the previous episode because when the episode previews come out, they cleverly don't include any of the combats. You don't know which cures are going to be included, but I sort of was 50-50 on whether Splash Star would transform, and they didn't. And looking back, if they did become Precure Splash Star, then Cure Bloom would have just transformed without any kind of powerful character arc since it was a My Focus episode. So it is kind of cool how they're spacing out which cures transform and giving them time to just simmer in development. So now let's talk about episode 6, The Wavering Flame. But this, of course, is the Cure Rouge/Rin episode. So Rin's plot of this episode is that she's feeling overwhelmed because she has to balance her work life and also her magical Precure life, which has come back to her. And she feels guilty because she saw a shadow monster in the form of a dog. And she didn't talk about it because part of her wants to just focus on her job. But and something interesting is that my friend Kenta Wong, 94, brought up the idea of if Rin was busy, she should just like WhatsApp Nozomi and tell her, hey, I saw it at this coordinate, here's the location, go fight it, I have a presentation to do. I do think it was silly that she didn't just tell everyone that it happened because they would have gone and fought it for her. But I guess she was just feeling guilty about not going to awaken and fight it herself because work had become a huge priority in her life. And she was low-key on the verge of losing her job. So after a night out with the girls, Rin and Kaden walk home, and Rin recommends her aromatherapy because Kaden is very stressed with work and is unable to sleep. Also, this scene was very aesthetic and cozy. It gave me Sailor Moon 90s vibes when the characters would be walking and then we see the bright lights and, they're just chill. There's a really touching scene where Rin calls her mom just because she wants to feel comforted and she's feeling stressed. And we see a parallel between her and her mom because they're both overworking themselves. The mom said she's still closing up the shop even though she has to open it really early in the morning. And then Rin says, why don't you just ask, little brother and little sister to help? Which I was actually expecting to see her little siblings as teenagers, but unfortunately we just see an old photograph of them on the wall. And the mom says, well, they're too busy trying to find jobs and be hardworking just like you. And Rin's like, well, little do they know how miserable it is. So we see this kind of cycle happening in the family of them overworking themselves. So Rin and Kaden go to Saki's bakery and then to the Sky Tree from Splash Star. And I guess these locations between each season are just somehow connected, all-star style. It's really cool to see them bond throughout the entire episode because we had seen their bond in the original Yes Bigger 5. First, they were kind of butting heads because of their different personalities, hot and cold. There was an episode where they were arguing about which flowers look best for the shop, red flowers versus blue flowers. And they fought together in the Yes Bigger 5 Go-Go movie. So to see that bond again of them as adults is really sweet and nice. Also, I love each character's individual phone case. Okay, Rin has this stylish red Din's Fire vibes case. So meanwhile, Kurumi, Coco, and Natsu are also looking for signs of the shadows. We see more of Kurumi showing she cares about Nozomi. She's telling Coco to consider her feelings more. And it's just interesting to see that she really views her as a friend because, she was an asshole to her at the beginning of Yes Bigger 5. But at the end of Yes Bigger 5 Go-Go, she fully respects her. And here we see she still has that respect for her. Also, they keep describing the time flowers as sinister flowers. And there's a scene where Coco expresses his excitement for Rin transforming into a Kyogen. And Natsu is like, oh, maybe that's not a good thing. So there's definitely some kind of caveat with the time flower. I'm going to guess it's something where the Cures will be stuck as teenagers forever or something like that. The shadows come to attack near the Sky Tree. So Kaden and Rin have to fight. So first Kaden transforms to the Cure Aqua. And I kind of hated this part because although it was badass to see Cure Aqua jumping into the action, and I do love scenes like this in Otona because seeing the Cures fight alone and not with the entire group is very rare. In Precure, they rarely show the Cures fighting alone. I believe it's because they want to just show every character in every scene as much as possible so that way no one gets left out, which is good. I'm not complaining about that, but it does create more variety in Otona because here we just have two of the members fighting. This scene pissed me off because Aqua, she jumps up to kick the giant wolf shadow monster, but then she's immediately defeated simply by bouncing off the monster's nose. Bounces off the nose and she slams onto the tree and she's just KO'd. They're just not doing her justice with the fight scenes in this series. Like, poor Cure Aqua. It would make more sense if she was giving it some trouble. Like, she gave it like 1 HP left, but then let's say it bit her or it chomped on her and she was KO'd. It was a very poorly executed scene in my opinion. But anyways, Rin gets the courage and she's able to transform into Cure Rouge for the first time. Something interesting was that at the beginning of her transformation, they kind of included this crossfade of her adult form turning into her teenage form, and that replaced the original few seconds of the stock footage of Cure Rouge's transformation. But Cure Rouge kind of goes into action and attacks the giant wolf shadow, which contradicts why Cure Aqua wasn't able to hit it, but somehow Cure Rouge is. The animation was pretty decent in this fight, and Cure Aqua was able to get her strength back, and they do a combination attack, and I would have preferred if Cure Rouge just finished it off solo, but maybe Cure Aqua needed that after in that moment earlier. But it was pretty epic when they defeated the monster, and then the monster just explodes in the most impressive combination explosion animation, which just shows how powerful these two are. So yeah, next up is Urara's episode. Urara is looking stylish in this next episode. Love these yellow boots, and we also see the return of Ropu human form, Syrup, and he's an adult. So yeah, looking forward to that. Overall, Otona is really one of my favorite Precure series of all time. It's just been really different and fresh for the Precure franchise, from the slightly deeper themes to having only certain cures take part in the fights. I also love how rainbow everything is from the opening and the ending. It's very color-coded and just aesthetic and beautiful. It's funny looking back now because before any more information was revealed about this series, I didn't know if there would be any combat in this series, nor did I think the other cures were going to even appear, which is a bit silly looking back. And if that was the case, then this series would probably have been very bad. I just think it's such a fresh new take. And I'm so excited for the eventual Komachi episode, which will be coming in 2 weeks from now. The title will be My City, more like The Green Queen Reawakens. Tell me what you guys think of Otona Precure. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Thanks for watching.